Good evening, everybody. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville, Nate, and Big Joe as we get ready to talk to you about the world of sports. We have a lot to go over tonight. We have the NCAA Sweet 16 starting tonight, 7 o'clock. We got UConn coming on for around here for people to watch, and we got Tennessee, which we will be looking at very closely at 9 o'clock. We have football, of course, to get to as the teams keep shuffling the deck, getting ready for the draft next month. Of course, no word on the Jets front as they still trying to bring in more and more reasons for Aaron Rodgers to sign with them. And it gets closer and closer to me sitting there going, they're going to be left to hanging at the altar like the proverbial heartbroken groom. I just have this feeling it's not going to work out for them. But we will get to that and more. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm with you. The longer this drags on, the more I feel like the Jets are going to screw it up. It just gives them more time to F this up. Now, the big thing with me is I still don't understand why the Packers either you want him or you don't. If you want him, keep him, ride it out another season, get as far as you can get and do it. If you're done with him and you don't want him anymore, then trade him, get what you can possibly, the most you can possibly get for him. I mean, I don't mind them fighting a little bit for it, but then move on. I just don't understand this, just dragging it out to drag it out. It's stupid.
Well, I don't think I know they have to make the move, but I would expect, they don't have to make anything till June. They're going to have to, they really have to do something before the draft, or they're going to do it at all. But, I mean, really, it doesn't hurt them to even wait till a week before the draft. So they can sit there and let this eke out and eke out and eke out. But they are going to have to make the move before the draft. Otherwise, it's really ridiculous. Because what are you going to do?
If you're going to roll with Jordan Love, you better have a backup quarterback for him. I mean, if you're going to roll with him, you might want to get him to start, operating as the starter through camp and through the off-season program. And, why not just get going full go? I don't, as I said, get what you can possibly get, fight tooth and nail to drag. You have a little bit of leverage here over the Jets. I understand that. But why you want to drag it out and seem like there's a bunch of other suitors? How many other people really want Aaron Rodgers right now? I mean, what other teams are even in the Aaron Rodgers business? Name me one.
I think at that price, nobody.
That's what I'm saying. Nobody else has the cap room and the draft picks to even be on the table, and they're acting like there's other teams that they could potentially, go to. If the Jets thing doesn't work out, there's no other teams. It's Jets or nobody. So either get it done if you want to get it done, or don't if you don't. But I don't understand why they're acting like, their leverage is that they can keep him. Right. Their leverage isn't that they can go to another team. I mean, they talk about like the Colts or somebody like that. The Colts, in my viewpoint, want a younger guy.
Right.
They've done the veteran thing for years. They've had 7 different starting quarterbacks in a row. I don't think they want to make it 8. I think they want a guy that's going to be there for more than 1 year. So I don't think the Colts are in the Aaron Rodgers business. The Raiders aren't in the Aaron Rodgers business anymore. The 49ers aren't in the Saints aren't in it. They signed their guy. I mean, the Texans are going to draft somebody.
Buccaneers went out and got their guy.
And they drafted Trask a couple years ago. Right. So they've got 2 guys. So, I think the Panthers have moved up. They're going to draft somebody. Maybe potentially the Falcons, but that's really the only other team that I could see that is even close to being in the business. And they just got rid of Matt Ryan.
Right.
So why do they want another guy who's 40 years old? They had a guy who was 40 years old for a long time.
No, there is no logic to this whole situation, especially with if Woody Johnson is really involved. He got on the jet. He went out and talked to Aaron Rodgers. Apparently, Aaron Rodgers bought into everything new. They made all the moves. They brought in his friends. They're doing the things they got to do. They brought in his hand-picked offensive coordinator. They've done everything. It's time for Woody to get off his hands and go with Joe Douglas and go up to Green Bay and say, let's get this done. Let's just get this done this weekend. Get it done. Get it over with. We're all looking. We're getting stupid now. We're getting to the point where we all look stupid. So it's about time we get it done. And I'm sick of hearing about it. I mean,
yeah, I don't want to. That's my main thing. I don't want to hear it anymore. I want to get my Aaron Rodgers Jets jersey, and I want to move forward.
I'm a Giant fan. I don't wish bad for the Jets. I hope it happens for them because I have a lot of friends that are Jet fans, and I feel bad for these guys because they've sat around. I've had a couple of glory runs. I've been lucky. The Giants got their quarterbacks right twice, and it turned into Super Bowl victories for them. And now they have their quarterback for the next 3 years, and we'll see what Daniel Jones becomes. If he can be the guy he was this year and get better, great move for the Giants. If not, they don't have to hang on to him long term, so they're in good shape. But this whole debacle, it's not a debacle yet, but I mean, this whole thing is like, it's just because I'm up here every time you turn on Sports Talk Radio, that's all they're talking about. When Aaron's going to get here, if Aaron's going to get here, when Aaron's going to get here, and you have your doubters, and you have everything, and like you said, there is no other reason they are on an island by themselves. These two teams, because there's not going to be if the Packers, yes, they can keep Aaron Rodgers and look dumb as hell, because the fact of the matter is, what are you going to do? Bench keep $50 million quarterback on the bench?
No,
or now you're going to bring in a happy $50 million quarterback as your hero. And, who knows what that means to him. Maybe he'll want to go out and show them that he can still do it. Maybe not. Maybe he won't be inspired. Who knows? But right now, there's no reason for him to not get it done. And we'll see what happens. But enough of that. Let's go on to the other moves that we saw being made. And we wanted to start out over there in the AFC East, where we've been talking about this forever.
Long time.
Bills got to get a running game for Josh Allen, and they went out and they made a big move, a nice 1-year deal.
I got to be honest,
is good.
I love it. I love Damian Harris. I mean, despite the injuries that he's experienced, other than that, I've really liked him. When he played for the Patriots, when he's been healthy, I feel like he has done a really good job. I feel like in the Bills offense, he's not going to get the ball 30 times a game. Okay. No, but if he can get the ball 15, 20 times a game, I think he can take the load off Josh Allen. And this is a back that can move the ball and get the tough yardage. He also has some speed where he can bust a 20 or 30 yard run. So I feel like him, James Cook combined together with Josh Allen means this team has a running game now. And I think this is big news for the Bills.
Yeah, and we've always said, Josh Allen, you got to take the running game off. You want him to run, but you don't want to be your leading rusher in every freaking game. And you don't want him carrying the ball 15 times every freaking game. You want to see him get it down to where he's running about 7 times a game for maximum yardage, and let him sit back and hand off the ball to a guy that can be a solid running back in the game. Like you said, in the Patriot way of doing things, no running back gets a lot of wiggle room to be a star. No. 1 week you're a star, the next week you're benched. 1 week you're a star.
Yeah, he rides the hot hand, but a lot of people forget in 2021, not last year, but the year before when he was healthy, Harris played in 15 games. He ran for almost 1,000 yards, 930 yards. He ran for 15 touchdowns.
Right.
And he ran for 5 yards a carry. So this is a guy who can tote the rock. This is the guy they've been looking for, in my opinion. He's a big-time upgrade over Singletary, in my opinion. And he's a guy that also can be that complement to James Cook, who can be that third down back, that receiving back that can really work well together. So I feel like this was a big move for him. And if Harris is healthy, the sky's the limit for the Bills offense, in my opinion, with this move being made.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a great move for them, and they needed to do something. They needed to, they've been the quote unquote sexy pick the last 2 years, and come up short. So you can't keep doing business as usual. You gotta look at what you need and fill that need. And we've been talking about a running back for 3 years now. So
Yeah, it was
good for
time.
them. Good for them. Let's keep it in the East. And the Dolphins, I guess they're really going to go with Tua. I mean, they're really going all in with Tua. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they might go after Lamar. I thought that might be a good move for them to make. I guess they didn't want to give up the capital and the 2 draft picks and do that, but they may be second guessing themselves if something happens and if Tua's not ready to go at the beginning of the season, or if he gets, heaven forbid, another concussion, they're in big trouble. But at the same time, when Tua was healthy, I thought he played really well.
Yeah.
And, they did sign Mike White as a guy who can come in and play a couple of games if need be. But this guy's not your answer if he can't go,
right, because he has the same injury problems.
Exactly, he does, and he's just not a starter in my opinion.
No,
he's a backup. But I do like some of the other moves they made. They brought back Mostert and Wilson, which with those 2 guys, injury history, I think it's good to bring them both back. I like the signing of David Long. Signing him away from the Titans, I think was a big time move, and then signing Deshaun Elliott, the safety, was also huge, and
right.
Then they made the trade for Jalen Ramsey, whether or not that will help him and how much Jalen Ramsey's got left in the tank, I'm not sure.
Right.
But, they're making moves. They're trying to compete with the Bills and stay up to par with them. So I do think that the Dolphins have been active, and I think they've done some good things.
And they had, with what we talked about at the top of the hour, I mean, with the looming threat of Aaron Rodgers coming into the division, you can't just stand pat. You can't just sit there, because you have to be ready for the probability he's going to be here.
Right.
And who knows what that's going to do for the Jets. Now you got the Patriots, who I like the Gesicki signing, but I mean, they already had 2 tight ends.
Yeah, they traded Jonnu Smith, one of their tight ends, who they invested a lot of money in and didn't get much return. So, they didn't really – they kind of saved a little bit of cash by signing Gesicki. He was cheaper than Jonnu. So, I don't know. I think he kind of fits what they do.
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree.
More than Jonnu. But, I agree with you. I didn't really think tight end was a place they were going to make another splash signing at. But with trading away Jonnu, I guess it opened the door for him. But really, it looks to me like the Patriots pretty much just signed back their own guys. I mean, the only dudes they really, added were Juju, Smith-Schuster, and James Robinson.
Right. And then back to Gesicki, I think Gesicki does give them something they used to like to do with Gronk, which is he's not a Gronk, but he's kind of one of those hybrid tight ends that you can split out wide. You can move him in multiple positions and use him around the field. And let's face facts, he's there to catch passes. He's not there to block.
Nope.
So, and I've always loved Gesicki. So I think that's a pretty good pickup for them. And I think with Bill O'Brien coming in, they'll find new ways to get him done. It's funny, Devin McCourty retired this week, and he actually came out. I was reading his transcripts of what he came out and said on a Boston radio show about. He didn't come out right and nail it, but he kind of made it obvious that Joe Judge and Matt Patricia were responsible for Mac Jones not being what Mac Jones was his rookie year. And he thinks Bill O'Brien will help him get back on track.
Yeah, I mean, tell me something I don't know. It was kind of a failed experiment. No one really understood why Patricia was the offensive coordinator. I never really understood it. I don't think Mac Jones understood it, because there was multiple times where they were getting into it on the sidelines, and there was other times when he wasn't yelling at Patricia, he was throwing his arms up in the air going, what the hell is this guy doing?
No.
And kind of mocking Patricia. So I don't really understand that, but I do think it hurt Mac Jones's progression. I think Bill O'Brien will help it. But, does he have enough weapons to take that next step? I'm not sure. I think James Robinson's a downgrade from Damian Harris, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I still don't love their wide receiver core. I do like, Juju more than anyone they had. But do I think he's a true number one? Not really.
Well, let's look at, and Belichick is one, if not the greatest coach of all time, one of the great coaches of all time. But I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I think he invented Brady. Brady was Frankenstein's monster, but it also helped for them to have a crappy division to play in for almost 15 to 20 years. Yep. They never had to worry about that. They were going to get their division. It was just a matter of if they were going to win enough to get home field advantage and take advantage of that. So is this the last couple of years? Has Belichick's ego written a check he couldn't cash?
I think in some ways it has. Let's be honest though. I mean, only idiots don't understand what happened there. They went for it. They tried to win a Super Bowl as many times as they could at the end of the Brady era there. Yep. And then when Brady left, they had to pay the piper. I mean, all those contracts, the end of those contracts came due and they were in big time cap trouble. Really the only guy they could bring in at quarterback was Cam Newton. That didn't really work out, although he was playing well until he got injured and got COVID. So, I think he's done pretty good, honestly, considering the situation that they were in. And then let's give him credit. He sat right there where he was and drafted the guy that won the national championship. And that was a first team, all rookie as a quarterback in Mac Jones. So I think he's done pretty well. They've been competitive and, we'll see what he's still got left in the tank as far as coaching goes with what he can do this year in a tough division.
Yeah, for sure. And then the Jets, the rest of what they're doing. I don't mind the Lazard pickup as much. I really have shaken my head if they bring in Cobb. I mean, that's just bringing in a caddy, and if it means getting rid of Moore, I don't see what that trade-off means right now. I don't think Cobb has much left in his tank.
No, I don't either. He's been oft injured the last few years. They already did get rid of Moore. They traded Moore today to the Cleveland Browns, which was kind of surprising. But they did sign McCole Hardman from the world champion Kansas City Chiefs. But McCole Hardman's been banged up quite a bit. So they only gave him a 1-year deal worth up to 6.5 with incentives. But all in all, I liked the Chuck Clark signing. But the big thing is Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if they get Aaron Rodgers, I like this team. If they don't get Aaron Rodgers, this team's going to suck. Okay,
it basically is.
It's going to be last year all over again if they don't get Aaron Rodgers. So,
all right, let's go to the NFC East. Unless you want to go somewhere else first.
NFC East sounds good to me.
All right, let's start with the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody's team they love to hate. Bring back Cooper Rush makes sense. Dak usually gets injured. He knows their offense, even though it's not going to be Kellen Moore anymore. But he knows the system. He knows the players. That makes sense. Tony Pollard. Well, let's talk about. I know you're a big Zeke fan. What do you think about them dumping Zeke, and where do you think Zeke's going to end up?
From what I've heard, there's a couple of teams interested in Zeke. He's looking at the Eagles, the Jets, and the Bengals. Those are the 3 teams that are showing the most interest in him. I think Zeke will still get signed. First off, he was still somewhat productive last year, even though he missed several games due to injury. He ran for over 870 yards, and he was a touchdown scoring machine, and he can block, pass block really, really well. So somebody's going to sign his ass. I understand the move. It was a cost-cutting move, but I can tell you this, signing Ronald Jones is a massive downgrade. Ronald Jones was basically non-existent last year. For I believe he was on the Chiefs, but
yeah,
who knows? We never saw him. So I think they need to get another running back. Maybe a rookie is what they're looking at. Maybe they're looking to draft somebody. I don't know. But I did really like the trade for Brandon Cooks. Getting a guy that's got that top end speed that can still, take the top off the defense. Only giving up a fifth and a fifth round pick this year and a sixth round pick next year. That's nothing to get a guy like him. So I like the Brandon Cooks pickup. Bringing back Vander Esch, I don't really mind. Stephon Gilmore, I
don't get that.
I feel like he's long in the tooth.
Yeah.
He had a couple of decent games last year, but I felt like that was more an aberration than him making a big time comeback. We'll see. All they gave up was a fifth round compensatory, so it's not like they really gave up much for him. But I don't think that's not gonna bury the needle for him.
Yeah, I don't get the move, and just from as an outside move, it's just like it doesn't make him that much better unless he can turn back the clock, which usually doesn't happen with defensive backs after they leave New England.
Nope.
Usually they get old fast and fade into the
abyss.
Yeah, the abyss, or get their podcast, sports talk show, or whatever. So we'll see what happens there. The New York Giants, of course, we've talked about them, and Saquon and Jones, they took care of what they had to take care of. Paris Campbell, we've talked about. Jamison Crowder came in. Sterling Shepard doesn't hurt him for that amount of money. Not a bad contract. He probably won't make it through the year. Darren Waller, bringing him in was great. I mean, I like what the Giants are doing in the offseason. Joe Shane seems to have his finger on the pulse and know how to put a team together.
Yeah, I really like what he's done, especially offensively. I mean, the defense was pretty solid last year. They just need some targets. And as I mentioned last week in our show, I liked what I was seeing out of Wan'Dale Robinson. So, I mean, they got rid of the Kenny Galladay experiment is over. For whatever reason, that just did not work out. But we've got a slew of guys now: Paris Campbell, Jamison Crowder, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Robinson, who I just mentioned, Darren Waller. Being out of those guys, somebody is going to have a decent season, surely to God, for Daniel Jones. So I think they've done what they need to do. They re-signed Jared Davis, who I like, and I like what this guy's done with this team.
What about over in Washington? We got Jacoby Brissett in camp. Another one on his victory tour across the NFL. So it'll be a backup for Sam Howell, and see what happens there. But there's another team where I mean, I feel sorry for your boy Chico because the team's in such flux. Are they going to be sold? Are they not going to be sold? What's going on? Someone floated out there that Snyder just wants to screw up the team so bad that he leaves behind a shell when he leaves town. I don't believe he's that. I don't think he's that kind of a guy, but who knows? Washington, how good or how bad do you think they're going to be?
I mean, it's not looking good right now. I mean, to just turn this team over to a guy who started one effing game, I think is ridiculous. And then to provide insurance for him with Jacoby Brissett, I don't really buy that. I mean, I got to be honest, I was pretty impressed with the way that Jacoby Brissett played last year for the Browns, but I mean, they didn't go anywhere. Okay. Right. So, I mean, I think he did a pretty good job filling in and having all that thrust on his shoulders. But, I'm not ready to just say, okay, well, Jacoby can lead this team.
He's a backup.
He's a backup. He's not going to lead this team to the playoffs. So I think quarterback, again, is a problem. I really don't love any of the signings they've done on defense. I mean, I like re-signing Payne, but some of the other guys don't really impress me, and I think Chico's gonna be looking for a job.
Yeah, right. Well, he got him to the playoffs once by miracle because the division was so bad, but as it turns out, it's just a badly run operation. We've talked to the Eagles at length. How about bringing in Marcus Mariota as a backup? I think that's a pretty good move.
I like it. I mean, last year they had your boy from the Jaguars,
Minshew.
Gardner Minshew, and I liked him as a guy that could come in and play a couple games. And Mariota is not a starter anymore. I think we've all understood that, but I do think he can come in, finish a game, maybe play a couple of games, and keep, especially a team as good as the Eagles, keep them competitive. So I liked that signing, and they've brought back as many guys as they possibly could. They signed Greedy Williams, who was let go. They got Darius Slay and Bradbury back. They need to draft some safeties, but I think they've done well considering how many guys they had that were free agents.
The thing I like about Mariota overall is he plays a lot like Hurt.
Yeah.
When you bring in Minshew, he's a totally different type of quarterback. He's a pocket passer. Maybe he'll scramble for a lot of time, but a Mariota can actually run for yards. He's not as good as Jalen, but if Jalen was to ever go down, you don't have to change your whole offense. He's there to really do it. He can run it for a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's why I like it.
So, what other ones did you see where we can get to?
I do want to go up to the NFC North for a moment because I think we need to talk about the Bears. We touched on them last week with the trade. Getting DJ Moore, trading back and getting additional picks was huge. But we did not discuss getting Robert Tonyan, the tight end from the Packers. I really, really like that move. They got TJ Edwards, the leader of the Eagles defense that got him to the Super Bowl. So I really like that. I love the signing of Deontay Foreman. Honestly, I think he is just as good, if not better, than Armstrong, the guy they lost. So I really like that signing. And then I like PJ Walker, the signing for the backup. I think he's a guy that can do some of the things. I mean, he's not as good as Justin Fields, but he can do some of the things that Fields can do. So I love the DJ Moore pickup. I love the Robert Tonyan pickup. And I also liked bringing in Tremaine Edmonds, the linebacker from the Bills, with TJ Edwards. Those are two guys that can run that defense and make sure that everybody knows what the hell they're doing. I really like those two guys being added to their linebacking core.
But it's good. That's going to be an interesting division next year because, especially with Rodgers leaving, the Bears. Everybody's saying it's going to be the Lions' year. They're going to make the big move. They got so close last year. But the one thing that worried about the Lions, they're not going to sneak up on anybody. Everybody's going to be preparing for them this year. So whatever, even though I like Dan Campbell, I love how the press just moves the needle so far one way or the other so fast.
Yeah, no, I think this division is going to be very competitive next year. I think the Bears are going to be better. I think the Vikings are still going to be. Everyone's writing the Vikings off. They won the damn division, so I'm not ready to write them off. I think they're going to be just fine. I do like some of the moves that the Lions have done. They got better in the secondary, which is what they really needed to do. They got Gardner Johnson, which I like. They signed Cam Sutton, the former Tennessee Vol, who has been a starter for the Steelers for a long time. They signed another former Vol in Emmanuel Mosley and another former Vol in Jalen Reeves-Maybin. So they're like the volunteers of Michigan. But they got a lot of guys that are hard workers and big-time football junkies, just like their coach. So I like what the Lions have done, but I'm in no way, shape, or form ready to hand the division over to the Lions. I think the Minnesota is still the front runner, in my opinion, and I think it's going to be a real close division with all these teams having a shot at it.
I think throughout football there is a underlying, not jump out and say it out loud, but there's a hatred for Kirk Cousins. I think everybody wants to see him fall on his face for some reason, outside of his family and the people who root for the Vikings. I think everybody finds a way to take this guy down. He wins. But, in the playoffs, he never seems to show up, it seems, I guess. But he wins, and he gets you. He keeps you in games. He seems to have some talent. But I tell you, for some reason, there is a strong sentiment against Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I don't really get it. He was not the issue last year in Minnesota. I mean, their defense was horrible, and at times was really a problem for them. It wasn't it wasn't him causing issues with them losing games. So, I don't really have a problem with him. I think he's pretty damn good. And, the quarterback always gets all the credit and all the blame. That's just how it works. They make a lot of money, so that I get it. But I certainly am not writing off the Vikings. I think they're going to be right there in the thick of it when the end of the division comes around.
All right, let's get over to the NCAA and unless you got something else to hit before we hit the NCAA.
No, those are all the ones I want to talk about.
All right, let's get to the NCAA, where it's become old hat. It's become no big news to have a 15 seed or a 16 seed or a 14 seed take out these big time teams. This had to be the worst loss of Matt Painter's time in Purdue. I mean, you have the reigning best player in the NCAA playing for you, a 7'4" center, and a team from somewhere in New Jersey comes in, and I think their tallest player was 6'7", something like that, and you go down in the first on opening night. I mean, I think this is a little bit worse than Virginia's loss a couple of years ago.
I think it is worse. Because of the fact that the team they were playing, Fairleigh Dickinson, shouldn't even have been in the tournament.
Right.
They didn't win the regular season. They didn't win the conference tournament. The team, Merrimack, that won the conference tournament hasn't been in Division I for 3 years, so they were ineligible. So Fairleigh Dickinson got in by default. They had to play the play-in game to get the 16 seed. They beat Texas Southern, got the 16 seed, and everybody's like, oh, hell, they're just happy to be there. Purdue's going to walk all over them. And then what happens? Purdue scores 58 points in the game and really lays an egg and gets beat. I mean, Eddie still had 21 points and 15 rebounds, so it's not like he was horrible. It's just that nobody else did anything on this team, and it didn't look like a real good game plan. They looked shook the entire game, and it looked to me like they were playing not to lose instead of playing to win.
And before we get, I totally agree with your analysis there. But getting back to what you said about Fairleigh Dickinson getting in, these are the kind of things that drive people crazy about the NCAA. Yep. If Merrimack was good enough to be a D1 school all year long and compete as a D1 school, how can you say they got to wait 3 years to make your tournament? How stupid is that for a rule? How stupid?
It doesn't make any sense. It's just like the rest of the NCAA. It makes absolutely no sense. It's kind of like the first round where they play like the East region and the South region at the same stadium.
Right.
Where again, two teams play, they get done, and then two other teams play, and they're in a different region. And it's like they're playing at the same place, but they're in a different region. It makes no freaking sense. And, it's all about making money. That's all they care about. And they just like making up stupid rules to pass the time. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. And it's totally unfair to Merrimack.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Fairleigh Dickinson's loving it. They got in the tournament, didn't even have to qualify. And then they got to, get together and be like, well, we got nothing to lose. We're not even supposed to be here. And they beat Texas Southern.
They lose their coach.
And then they win and beat Purdue, and then their coach is gone. So kudos to him, man. He used the situation to get himself a lot of money, and good for him.
Yeah. Well, it's good and it's bad. It's like I said to you the other night when we were talking, or we were texting back and forth about Rick Pitino's move, which wasn't unexpected, really. I think Pitino kind of figured out that Iona is what Iona is, and in 4 years he hasn't been able to get that big time player to come to Iona. But I don't know how much better he's going to do at St. John's. We'll see.
Yeah, that's my question. Can you get a big-time player to come to St. John's? I mean, now, you can't just slip the guy some cash under the table and get him to come up there. I mean, you gotta really bring the big bucks, because these guys can make NIL money at these other big schools legally. So he can't just illegally give them money and get them to come there. I know he likes hookers, But these guys can afford their own hookers now with their NIL packages. So he's going to have to come up with some new tricks. And, we'll see how good of a coach he is, because nobody's been able to win at St. John's. In fact, they haven't made the NCAA tournament since Chris Mullen was there.
Yeah, I mean, it's since Carter Secca retired, that was it.
Well, they haven't been relevant since him, but I'm just saying Chris Mullen made the tournament 1 year.
The one thing I think that might work in their direction is the fact that I think the Garden will again open the doors to bring them in. Instead of playing in that little gym out in Queens, they'll play, I think, a good percentage of their home games at the Garden whenever possible, which will open up some stuff. You might get some guys from, hey, let's face facts, a lot of businesses in New York City that might pay some NIL money to some players.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. He's going to have to get creative. He's going to have to figure out a way to get these guys some money legally.
The Garden is the pivot, because
I'm just saying he's never done it that way. He's always giving them chicks and cash under the table. So we'll see if he can do it the right way.
But if you got a guy who's going to throw money for the player, and he's going to get a suite at the Garden to show off what he brought to St. John's, a lot easier to do that than into the Carnesecca gym out on Queen Boulevard or wherever it is. So we'll see. Let's get back to the players, or the games we want to talk about. Of course, Princeton, a big upset too. Two big upsets to make their way to the Sweet 16 for the first time, I think, since the 70s.
I believe so.
Or the 60s? I think the 60s.
And they've got a real chance of winning this next game. I mean, Creighton's a good team, but let's be honest. I mean, Baylor was the highest seed in that bracket that was left, and Creighton took care of them. So now, Princeton just has to take care of business against Creighton, which I think they could do.
Yeah, I've always liked their coach. I liked him as a player there. And I always root for Princeton anyway, so they're a good Ivy League team to root for. So let's look at tonight's games. Let's see what we got. Of course, UConn against Arkansas. UConn's looked pretty good. I got to give them. I thought Iona was going to give them trouble, and they killed them in the second half. What do you think about UConn? You told me Arkansas could be a noisemaker, and they turned out to be.
I did. I said I really liked Arkansas. I said they've got a lot of a lot of length. They've got a lot of athletes. They've got a good freshman point guard who missed the beginning of the season due to injury and has started to get going. And did I think they were going to knock off Kansas like that? I wasn't sure, but I thought they had a chance, and they certainly took care of business against Illinois, beating them by 10 points. And then they, hit that last shot to beat Kansas by 1. And, I think they can beat UConn, but I've been very impressed with the way UConn has played their first 2 games. I didn't expect that. They, as you said, took care of business against Iona big time, and then they beat the crap out of St. Mary's. Which was kind of unexpected. Beat them 70-55. So I think this is going to be a good game, although, who the hell knows in this tournament. I'm about to stop making predictions because every time I think I know what I'm talking about, then I watch a game and the exact opposite happens.
I think, but it's the beauty of college now, because it's so hard with the fact of the matter, the guys don't stick around, the transfer portal, everything. There's no continuity. I mean, when you were really a big time Duke fan, you knew Christian Laettner was going to be there every year. You knew Grant Hill was going to be there every year. You knew Bobby Hurley was going to be there every year. Even the old North Carolina teams, they stayed, so you knew the continuity. Now, from one year to the next, you never know, and you never know how they're going to mesh. So,
it's a whole different ball game. And what I have enjoyed is that some of these teams that have some older players have won some of these games, and I've liked that. Some of these guys, like Tennessee, for example, we haven't really talked about them yet, but they're a team that lost their point guard, Zakai Ziegler, in the last game of the season against Arkansas. Everybody thought they were done, especially the idiots around here. They're like, there's no way we're going to even beat Louisiana. But they forgot that Tennessee's got to host of seniors. I mean,
Yeah.
we have a ton of seniors. When you talk about Santiago Vescovi, Olivia Nakamwa, Euros Plavlich, Josiah Jordan James. I mean, Tyreek Key, who's a graduate transfer from Indiana State. Those guys that I just mentioned are all seniors.
Right.
And so they've got a couple of freshmen too. And, the kid Phillips, who was a big time recruit. But, you mesh some of these young guys with a bunch of seniors who played there for 4, some of them 5 years. And look what happens when you're in the tournament.
Yeah. So I like Tennessee. I like their chances. Let's talk about, we're going to get to Tennessee in a second. Let's go over to UCLA Gonzaga. Should be a fun game tonight. A great defensive team against a great offensive team. Although Mark Few is starting to get cranky now. He's complaining the basketballs are too brand new, too shiny.
What the hell does that even mean? I don't know. But, I mean, we talked about this. Gonzaga was hitting their stride at the right time. They were ranked really high at the beginning of the season. They lost a couple of games. Everybody kind of lost their faith in them. And then, they've really stepped it up since then. They won several games down the stretch. They won the conference tournament, beat St. Mary's, got up to a 3 seed, and they've looked pretty good in the tournament so far. The TCU game was a little bit tighter than I bet they would have liked. But they won. They took care of business. It survived in advance, and they've got a kid and, your boy Drew Timme, who, can only jump 2 inches, but he can score 30 points and get 10 rebounds. And when you can do that in a tournament, you're in good shape. But they've also got 3 good guards in Hickman, Strother, and Bolton. And so they've got a guy down low that can do everything, and they've got some decent guards. So this team can definitely keep going. I mean, no one really talked about Gonzaga this year, but they're 30-5.
This could be the perfect year for them. I mean, we've watched Gonzaga in the last 20 years go from being, what are they? Who are they? To everybody's darling, to the upset dandies, to a powerhouse, to the best team in the country, it would seem, and then the team that can't win. It wouldn't be shocking if this was their year with the way things are going. And like you said, they're hitting their stride now. Maybe Mark Few knew a little thing going and knew a little bit, and maybe he held back on the reins a little bit to keep them around for this. Maybe he's learned. Maybe he's learned the way to win.
Yeah, no, maybe, he tried to hold back the reins a little bit until towards the end of the season to keep these guys a little bit fresh for tournament time, have them gel, have them, hit the stride at the right time. It seems to be working. But, can they beat UCLA? That'll be the true test, because UCLA is a pretty good team too. And, a lot of people are picking UCLA. They're the higher seed. They've played pretty well so far. They beat the crap out of UNC Asheville. They struggled a little bit against Northwestern, but this is a team that's got size. They've got good guards. They don't really have that knockout player, but they still have Jacquez Jr., who dropped 24 on Northwestern. So I think they're a team that could beat Gonzaga if they play right.
Yep, I totally agree with that. And it could be. And one of these teams could take it the whole. Either one of those teams could take it the whole way. We talked about Creighton, Princeton, Alabama, San Diego State. Alabama is starting to. A lot of people I hear here around here are shocked about Alabama. I'm not shocked about Alabama. I was talking to somebody last night at the trivia night, and the guy's like, I never knew Alabama had a basketball team. I said, they put out some pretty good teams. They may not have won everything, but Alabama is always around the top of the SEC. So,
going all the way back to when they had Robert Ory and Antonio McDyess and Latrell Sprewell. I mean, Latrell Sprewell and Robert Ory were on the same team.
Right.
They've had some good basketball teams, and this coach they've got now has been winning games. They were ranked number 1 going into the tournament. They're 31-5, and they've got one of the best players in all of basketball, whether you like him or you hate him. Mr. Miller's the real deal. 19 points and 7 rebounds against Maryland. He can do it all, but they've got more than just him. They go very deep. They play at least 12 or 13 guys, sometimes even in one game.
Yeah. All right, and now let's get to the East, to Tennessee tonight, 9 o'clock, Florida Atlantic. You would think that this should be a coast for them, but you never know in a tournament. Florida Atlantic. I don't know that much about that team, but I'll tell you, I loved what I saw with Tennessee so far in this tournament. We both like Rick Barnes, but I love their defense. I love their physicality of their play. Um, you talked about it just a few minutes ago. Just expand a little bit on your Tennessee boys.
Yeah, man. I mean, this team does travel because they're deep. They've got they've got a pretty deep bench. They play at least 9 or 10 guys. They're huge. We've got three 7-footers that play, and one guy that nobody really talks about, and that none of these other shows will mention because they haven't been to every single game all year long like I have. But a kid that's really stepped it up is a Waka, who is from New York City. And he's a freshman. And he didn't really play a lot at the beginning of the season, but he started to take over. His name's Toby Awaka. He's 6'8", 6'9", 250 pounds. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year in New York. He's from Hyde Park. And this kid can really get it done. And he's been playing more and more minutes. But he's a guy that can come in and really bang it up down in the boards. And then you add him with the fact they've got 2 7-footers and Jonas Adu and Euros Plavlich. And there's 3 big guys that can really get it done. And then, of course, last week, Olivier Nakamwa, my daughter Olivia, her favorite player is Olivier, and because she always thought his name was Olivia at first, but I mean, he really showed up. Now he is a dude that'll score 30 one night and 4 the next. But if he can do anything close to what he did against Duke, Tennessee should have no problem. But this is a team that's playing without their starting point guard in Zakai Ziegler, and it hasn't really seemed to hurt them so far. It seemed to bring them together. The good news is they got that grad transfer in Tyreek Key, who's one of the all-time leading scorers in Indiana State history. He's helped them in this tournament. I mean, is he dropping 20 points? No, but he's playing 15 to 20 minutes and really allowing Vescovy to get some rest.
Right. And now the game that's going on right now, Michigan State and Kansas State, it looks like it's a tight game. I'm just getting a quick update here. Going to the midway point, they're about tied, which probably plays more to Michigan State's strength than it does Kansas State. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, Kansas State has got 2 really good players. I don't know if you know the whole story beyond Keontae Johnson, but he's the kid that collapsed on the floor at Florida a couple of years ago. And he died basically on the court. The trainer for Florida got out on there. They were playing Florida State in Tallahassee that night. He started chest compressions, kept his heart going. The Florida State trainer ran out with a defibrillator and shocked him and brought him back to life. And he transferred to Kansas State and has had a phenomenal season. He's up for the Player of the Year. He averages 18 points and 7 rebounds and almost 2.5 assists a game. He's shooting over 51% from the floor. He is legit. But not only do they have him, but they've got Noel, who is also really good. Marquise Noel, he averages 17 points too. So that's big for me when you got 2 guys that score 20 points a game.
Right.
That's big time. And Noel's not just a scorer; he's a distributor. He averages 8 assists a game. Yeah. So I think I think this is gonna be tough for Izzo. I mean, Izzo, he's synonymous for this. He has a bad season. The team doesn't, do as well as they'd hoped, but then he sneaks in the tournament and he ends up getting to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. But this is a real deal team that can score. And, if I had to pick right now, I'd probably lean towards Kansas State because they've got better scorers, in my opinion.
I think you hit on it right then. Noel.
Yeah.
He has that Mateen Cleaves look to him right now.
Yeah.
And
he's a leader, man. He's not only, like I said, a guy that can score the basketball, but he's also can distribute it and get other guys involved. He's a pretty good on-ball defender, and he's a good rebounding guard.
Yeah. All right, let's switch to the Midwest so we can get in that. I know we got to get to the game to watch the games. Houston, they're just taking care of business. But how about Miami against Houston? Could this be a tricky part for them?
Honestly, I did not expect, after Miami kind of snuck up on everybody last year, I was like, it's going to be tough for them to replicate the success that they had last season. And it's just like, they got to play Drake, which is a decent team, the first round. And if they win that, they got to play Indiana or Kent State, which both of those teams are pretty solid. And all they've done is coast through. And, they struggled a little bit against Drake, but still got it done and then beat the crap out of Indiana the other night. So, if anybody can give Houston a tough game, I think it's Miami. Now, Houston has coasted so far.
Yeah.
Northern Kentucky played them tough in the first half, gave them everything they had, but they ran out of gas, and Auburn just could not give Houston a game. So I expect this Houston Miami game, which is, I believe, tomorrow, to be a pretty close one.
Yeah, and then we got Texas Xavier. Texas, what do you think about this Texas team?
I like this Texas team. I expect them to win this game. Penn State gave them everything they had. They just kept fighting and kept hitting shots after shot. And Penn State's kind of a weird team because they've got that kind of back down, a kind of a different type of player in that Pickett guy.
Right.
It's Jalen Pickett. He's about 6'4". He's about 215. He's kind of a point guard, but he's a kind of a tough guy that kind of backs people down and plays old school. And I really liked him, but they just could never, they'd get it to like 6, they get it to like 5, and then Texas would go on a run. And I've got to say that was one of the best performances I've seen in a tournament game in a long time by Dylan Dessou. He has just gotten better and better as the year went on. Normally, when guys are seniors, they kind of are what they are. But he started the year, averaging about 10 points and 5 rebounds. And the last 10 or 12 games, he's really taken off and had his best game of his career almost. I think he had one game where he had 29. But, against Penn State, he finished the night 28 points, 10 rebounds. He was 14 of 20 from the floor, Joe. Taking high percentage shots and really, really hitting big shots at big moments. But they've got length. They've got some good guards in Hunter and Carr, and they've got some depth off the bench too with the kid Rice that I like a lot. He scored 13 points in 30 minutes off the bench. So I expect Texas to win this game. I just think they're more talented than Xavier is, even though Xavier went back to the well and got their cheater ass coach and Sean Miller, who if I ever see, I will punch in the face because I hate that guy.
Don't go to jail. Don't go to jail. All right, let's make our picks coming out of each region. Let's start with the Midwest. I'm picking Houston. I think it'll be Houston against Texas. So it'll be some kind of a Texas team coming out. But I'm not a Houston fan by any stretch of imagination, and nothing to do with Sampson or anything. I just never been a Houston fan. But I just think that they passed all the tests, so why shouldn't they get to the Final Four?
Yeah, I like Sampson. I've actually met him several times, and he's a nice guy. I like him, and I think he's a really, really good college basketball coach and one of the most underrated coaches in the league. Some people were thinking Texas might struggle because they've got they don't have a coach. They've got an interim coach, but he has done a really, really good job up to this point, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for keeping this team together. They've played really well. I think if Texas can get by Xavier, I'm picking Texas to beat Houston.
All right, coming out of the East, I'm going with Kansas State. I like Noel as the guard. I just think he's one of those guys. Maybe he won't ever do anything in the pros, but I think he's got that Mateen Cleaves. I go back to Butch Ellis. I go back to Phil Ford. One of those type of guards. He's going to have one of those. He's having one of those type of years.
Well, I'm done doubting my Volunteers. I've been supportive of them all year. Obviously, I've been to every game and I've sung their praises, and I've stuck with them. And did I think they were going to get this far? I was a little bit hesitant to pick them to go this deep without their starting point guard, but I really feel like they've rallied. And I guess I kind of, even myself, forgot that they've got 5 seniors on this team. So I'm going with the Vols.
No, I'm rooting for the Vols, but I would like to see. Let's put it this way: if that's the regional final, I'll be happy to watch Tennessee against Kansas State. Down in the South, I would love to say Princeton, but the part of me is like, yeah, Princeton, but that means whoever gets them in the Final Four or the next game just coasts. So I'll be rooting for Princeton, but I'm thinking Alabama here.
Yeah, I mean, I really think the winner of tomorrow's game at 6:30 between Alabama and San Diego State, I think whoever wins that game is going to go. The question is who wins that game, and no one's really talked about San Diego State, but they're 29-6 right now, and they've got some ballers. No one's really talked about them because they're in the West Coast, but they've got a lot of guys that contribute on this team. They don't really have that one guy that goes nuts, but they do have a lot of guys that contribute to this team, and they're very deep. That being said, I'm taking Bama.
And in the West, I hate to go. I'll tell you, I think UConn just wants to prove me wrong because I thought they were going down Iona, but I'm saying the Zags. I think the Zags are going to come out. I think I was leaning towards UCLA, but the more I listen to you talk about Gonzaga, and the more when I'm going on in my mind tonight, going, it would make sense because everybody wrote them off that this would be the year they do it.
Yeah, I'm thinking Gonzaga or Arkansas. I liked Arkansas. I thought they were a team that's sneaky good. They haven't had the best season record-wise, but they play in a tough conference, and they've kind of struggled to get there. But I do think if Arkansas and Gonzaga play, I would pick Gonzaga. So I'm taking Gonzaga as well.
All right, I want to go before we go. Let's talk about the coaching changes at the college level. We talked about Pitino. We talked about Iona getting new. Ed Cooley leaves Providence high and dry, or high and dry to go to Georgetown. Don't really understand that move a lot. I mean, to me, Georgetown, since John Thompson left there, hasn't exactly been royalty of basketball. And for Cooley, who'd done such a good job up in Providence, I don't get it. I don't get that move.
Yeah, I mean, he probably got more money.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand why he did it. But I do think it's okay because I know you like Providence, and they got Kim English, who is a guy who was a Rick Barnes assistant.
Right.
He was a really good recruiter here in Knoxville at Tennessee. He went to George Mason and did a pretty good job there. Really good season last year. And now he's followed Rick Barnes in Rick Barnes' first two stops. Rick Barnes started his career at George Mason, then he went to Providence. Well, now Kim English started his career at George Mason, and he's gone to Providence. So don't worry about Cooley moving on. You got another good coach coming in there, so I'm okay with it.
All right, Tobin Anderson going to Iona. No, the one thing I will say, that one thing he's got to understand when he goes there, Rick Pitino is a legend. I get that. But Tim Cluse did a hell of a job before Rick Pitino got there.
Yeah.
Tim Cluse averaged, I think, 23 wins a year while he was coaching Iona. I think he had only 1 year where he didn't win at least 20 games. So for Tobin Anderson, there's going to be some, not national expectations, but MAC expectations and Iona expectations. You better be ready to hit the floor running because you're not just following Rick Pitino, you're following Tim Cluse, who did a hell of a job there.
Yeah, it's a true story. So he better be ready to go. One of the big hires that, kind of surprised me a little bit was the Stooksbury. Mike Stooksbury getting, from Penn State, getting hired as the new head coach at Notre Dame.
Right.
I like Micah Stooksbury, as I just mentioned, kind of had a different type of basketball, but it worked, and they, as I said, they played Texas really, really tough and, got to it. He was an assistant on that Butler team that was the back-to-back NCAA national championship runner-up.
Right.
So I think he learned a lot there under Brad Stevens. And he's a hot name. He was on the Purdue staff for 3 years. He went to Boston.
Hope he forgot everything he learned under Painter.
Yeah, well, during the regular season, it's good. But he went to Boston under Brad Stevens again, and then he went back to Purdue, and then became the head coach of Penn State, and was only there. 2021 was his first season, so it's not like he's been a head coach forever. He's only been at Penn State for a couple of seasons, but if you can win at Penn State in basketball, you may be good.
And the other thing, I think his ego, because Penn State is a football first university, and so is Notre Dame. He'll be able to go back in and go to blend in there a little bit easier than, say, a Patino would be, who's used to being, the center of attention.
I agree with that.
You're never going to take over as great as Notre Dame's football legacy has been. They haven't won championships forever. Meanwhile, they have a very good lacrosse program. They have a very good hockey program, and Mike Bray was pretty successful. But you would think Notre Dame still win a national championship by the way their football team gets notarized.
No shit.
That's what I say. So before we go, I just want a sad note from me. You hate to, when these things happen, but Willis Reed passed away this week from my childhood. Everybody remembers him taking the court in the 7th game, even though he only played for like 4 minutes and scored 2 buckets. It's still one of the great New York legends, one of the great New York moments. It probably made the new Madison Square Garden into, like they call it, the Mecca of basketball for a while he was there. Sad that he had a great life. He did a lot of great things. He's a Hall of Famer. He'll be always remembered. I was a little pissed about up around here that, unlike in the past when the legend was had passed away, Sports Talk Radio practically ignored it.
Yeah,
I mean, I was never a big Mike and the Mad Dog fan, but I will say one thing they were good about. When a legend like that passed away, they did an entire 4-hour show about him. They brought in people that used to play with him, and I don't know, maybe he is 80 years old. Maybe he can't find those players anymore. But I mean, it's like somebody should have done something about it rather than what I was listening to when I got in my car. I was like, are you kidding me? No one's even talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're talking about stupid things. They're talking about, personal things, what their wives are cooking tonight. I'm like, are you doing Sports Talk Radio or what? I mean, come on. I mean, I understand. Maybe you didn't see him play, but you got to know the legend of it. I mean, I never saw Mickey Mantle really play, but I knew how important he was.
Yeah.
So I don't get it. But
yeah, you think at least the New York media would discuss it. I mean, I understand the national media maybe glossing over it, but you would think that at least in New York City, they would mention it.
Yeah, you would think it would be a big time show, but they, there was more about Aaron Rodgers, who still hasn't played her yet.
Yeah.
Rather than a guy who gave the Knicks their only 2 championships.
Yeah, no shit. That's why I was saying that I wanted him just to get Rodgers signed just so we can talk about anything else.
You got it. All right. So, enjoy the games tonight. Like I said, I'll be rooting hard for your Vols tonight. I know I picked Kansas State, but I will not be heartbroken if I'm wrong, because I've always liked Rick Barnes. He's a great guy and a classy individual. So, Go Vols.
Yes, sir. Go Vols. And speaking of Vols, tune in to Man Coverage Sunday, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern. We've got former volunteer standout linebacker, national champion, Eric Westmoreland, third-round draft pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's going to be on the show, and we're going to be talking some memory lane and talking a little bit about what's been going on recently here in the Southeastern Conference from a guy that used to knock the crap out of people in the Southeast.
All right. If the Vols do make the Final Four, next week we'll play Rocky Top.
I like it. We'll get old Dolly on the show, maybe.
You got it. Talk to you later. Enjoy tonight. Have a good weekend.
See you, buddy.